Kuro Games really knows what they're doing with these white hair characters. Jinshi will blow you away with a dragon laser beam, Camellia will blow you away with her spinning fury, Calazone will blow you away with the absurd amount of nicknames that he has, and Carlotta will blow you away with the sheer force of her shotgun blast. With all of these blowjobs we get in Wuthering Waves, Carlotta is a special one.
That's not how you use the word.
Anyway, Charlotta is a premium cryo gunslinging goddess, character, that will premiere in version 2.0 of Wuthering Waves. She will specialize in resonant skill damage, as every part of her kit is considered resonant skill damage. The main point of her kit is to use her resonance liberation to blast holes in your enemies and then completely eviscerate them with the final climactic blast. My name is Void Enigma, and I'll be showing you everything that you need to know about Carlotta as far as her kit, best weapons, echoes, and skill priorities, and her best teams. Carlotta is a character with more words in her kit than I have reason to pull for her. It is actually very simple at the end of the day, like most Wuthering Waves kit. Every part of her kit, her Forte Circuit, Resonance Liberation, and Resonance Skill of course, is considered Resonance Skill damage. She has this gauge here, and if you properly utilize her Forte Circuit, then you'll be able to dish out massive damage with her Liberation. First things first though, your goal as Carlotta's tool is to build up this gauge. Her Resonance Skill is pretty awesome, as it can completely freeze the enemy when it's used, but the real reason you're using this is for the second part, which will do some decent damage, as well as give you an excuse to look up Carlotta's skirt. The time stop is pretty useful, as you'll be able to actually dish out more damage as the enemy is just immobilized there. Now, building up the gauge is done by quite a few things. Essentially, you want to trigger dodge counters and actually use her basic attacks while also using her resonant skill, and it will get filled pretty quickly doing that. But the best part is actually using her intro skill, which will give you almost a full half gauge. After you max out the gauge, then you want to use her heavy attack to get a huge buff to her liberation damage. And by liberation damage, I mean her liberation's overall damage, which is considered resonant skill damage. Kinda weird when you think about it. This is required to get the most out of her liberation. So once you get your buffs and you're ready to hit the field, then you'll want to activate that heavy attack, which will significantly boost your resonance liberation damage, and then it's time to absolutely go to town on the enemy. Your next 5 shots will be gigantic cataclysmic booms, and the final attack will make you scream, "I am the bone of my blade." It's very important to use her resonant skill directly after to pre-start your next rotation as well, which is definitely quick swappable. The major point of her kit is that you can generally quick swap every part of it except the enhanced liberation that we talked about. It's really important to note that, because by actually quick swapping you will lose a massive amount of damage here. So to sum it up, spam her basic attacks but mainly her resonant skill, make sure you're quick swapping when you're using your resonant skill, and slowly working your sub DPS and healers to actually make them be able to fully buff Carlotta. And once you have all the buffs active and have her gauge maxed out, activate that heavy attack and use your liberation to complete the blast job, and finally, with your shotgun, blow your final load onto the enemy. Then finish with your resonant skill, which should be off cooldown. While you're either playing or watching Carlotta blow her load onto the enemy with her trigger finger, you can definitely like this video and subscribe for more fun content like this, right? Now then, with a new character comes new echoes and a brand new echo set. This new set, Frosty Resolve, will be the perfect set to use on Carlotta. If you're lacking this set, then in the meantime, you'll definitely be able to use the original Glacio set that all Glacio main characters would use. The main echo will be a brand new 4-cost echo, the Sentry construct. It's quick swappable, and keep in mind that it does have a passive buff to buff Carlotta's Glacio damage and resonant skill damage by merely equipping it. So you don't actually have to even use the echo, but it is pretty nice because once you use your resonance liberation on Carlotta, you'll be able to actually quick swap off, and it'll come in with a hell dive that will freeze the enemy, but we'll talk more about that later when we actually get the release of Rinascita. Anyway, the main stat depends on the weapon, so you're going to go with crit rate or crit damage, and for the 3-cost piece, you'll definitely want Glacio damage, or you can use attack percent if you're struggling to roll good ones. And for the 1-cost, of course, we want to go with attack percent. Now for the substats. She wants a decent amount of energy recharge, but not too much, but more is definitely better than less. I found that around 130 to 140% is perfect, so around 3 to 4 sub rolls would be perfect to actually get. Beyond that, for the substats, you want to prioritize attack percent, then attack, and then resonant skill damage. Basic attack barely helps here, but it is still useful, and everything else is kinda useless. Up next, the weapon option, and man oh man, the signature weapon is crazy. 72% crit damage and a boost to resonant skill damage when you actually activate her liberation or her intro skill. Yeah, this is definitely a recommended option. It is actually very limited with what it does buff with the passive because you have to use the Resonance Liberation or intro skill, so when you're not in those two modes you're not getting much out of it, but when you actually access the brunt of her kit, then you'll implode the enemy. Literally, it's just that great. The next best option is the Static Mitch, which will give you a nice crit rate boost, which automatically makes it an exceptional option. Unfortunately, it offers a 10% attack buff, which the signature weapon already gives a 12% attack buff, so it's very much lacking there. To make up for it, it does give some energy recharge to help get her liberation off much smoother. So the passive is still useful, it's just not as good as her signature weapon. This is going to be her second best option. After that, we have the Battle Pass weapon, Thunderbolt. With refinements, this does get better, but I wouldn't really recommend getting refinements for this particular weapon as it just really falls short of the Static Mist or her signature weapon. Still usable, but you'll definitely want to eventually get her the Static Mist. Next, we have the, how do you say this? ReaLazy Jet. I hope I said that right. Anyway, this is a decent option, but sadly the uptime on the actual buff is not good at R1, and at R5 it's just overall decent. The Undying Flame is another 4-star option, but it's just decent. You'll be able to get a 40% resonant skill damage buff every time you trigger an intro skill, but that does require 5 refinements. This actually does have a place with a team with Sanhua that we'll talk about later. All of the other guns are just not really good. And I guess you could use something like the Nova Burst on her, but you should really focus on the standard pulls to get a Static Mist if you're not able to get her signature weapon or lack any of the other options. Now honestly, for a character that specializes in resonant skill damage, she has quite a few options thanks to her fluid gameplay. Of course, the top characters that come to mind are characters that buff resonant skill damage with their outro skill, such as Zheji, Lumi, and Taochi. And of course, Zheji is the strongest choice here, while Lumi is definitely going to offer more damage than Taochi, because Taochi is going to be better for a defensive fight. These characters will make Carlotta's Resonance Liberation dish out some really big damage. Remember, they're buffing resonant skill damage, which does buff Carlotta's Resonance Liberation damage, but sometimes it's not always about the insane damage, but more so it's about the team contribution, and that's where her quick swap teams come into play. She plays really nicely alongside characters like Shan Li, Jin Shi, Shen Liao, and Yin Li in a quick swap role. I'm especially excited to play her with Shen Liao for the infinite Zawaldol time stop shenanigans with the Spectral Rover, and to my surprise, that team is actually surprisingly amazing. Another great team is Turbo Sanhua, where you'll be able to spam Sanhua's intro skill into Carlotta, which will make her get off her liberation a lot quicker. This is that team that I was talking about earlier to use with this particular weapon. This will greatly allow Carlotta to get her forte gauge up quickly and get off a lot of the liberations with ease. Sanhua will forever be one of the best units to turbocharge any character. She is very quick swap friendly, unlike Camellia, but she also pairs well with a resonant skill buffer and a hyper carry role, which makes her truly versatile and able to take on any team or content. Many people have been waiting for a gunslinger, and I have been coping with Chisia, but Carlotta really blew away my expectations. Her kit is super fluid and is just so fun to play. And she is, without a doubt, going to be the premier gunslinger for quite some time. So when you cast that Resonance Liberation or are pulling for her on the banner, just remember this chant. I am the bullet of my gun. Glacio is my body and Astrites are my blood. I have created over 1,000 guns, unknown to death, nor known to life. Have withstood countless hours of grinding to create this guaranteed pity. Yet, those hands will never hold Carlotta's. So as I pray, Carlotta, with your Glacio bullet, blow! If you're interested in being blown away by Carlotta, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and good luck to the Carlotta wanters. Until next time, Enigma, out.